Why are the top of mountains freezing cold and snowy when they are closer to the sun than the ground is? The other answers here are good. Just two things to think about. The sun is 93 million miles away. The tallest mountain is 512 miles high. So the difference in the distance to the sun between the top of the highest mountain and sea level is 6. That's an extremely small difference. What is really affected by height is air pressure. The air pressure atop Mount Everest is almost exactly 13 of the pressure at sea level. The tallest mountain in the USA has about 12 the air pressure of sea level. This means that there are fewer air molecules bouncing around up there. Since temperature is just a measure of how much kinetic energy movement energy there is in a space, fewer air molecules means lower temperature. Less stuff equals less energy. Like how a small car driving down the road has less energy than a semi-truck driving the same speed. The reason the equatorial regions are warmer isn't because they are closer to the sun, but because they face the sun more directly, so receive more energy per square meter over the course of the day compared to the poles. The higher up you go, the less air there is to trap the sun's heat. Less atmospheric gases. They hold the heat. Air pressure. Low air pressure equals warm spreads out more and dissipates more quickly. High air pressure equals warm concentrates and dissipates more slowly. While not a significant measurable difference between sea level and mountain level elevations, pressure does matter in terms of microclimates. The sun doesn't have a heating effect until it hits the ground. Less surface area up a mountain, thinner air, wind, it all contributes. The main point though is its relation to the sun doesn't actually matter, as the heat is generated at ground level. Less air and ground surface to hold onto the sun's heat. Spot on with the atmospheric thickness and air pressure points. It's like wearing thinner and thinner layers the higher you hike. A couple of nuggets to chew on. 1. Temperature actually varies in the atmosphere. It decreases in the troposphere, where we live, but then increases in the stratosphere due to ozone absorption of UV radiation. 2. The temperature drop rate, the lapse rate, is not a constant, it's an average. So, the 5.4 F 1000 feet mentioned before is a generalization. Various factors like moisture content can cause deviations. What's fascinating is how these principles influence flight. Aircraft cabins are pressurized to simulate an altitude far below their actual cruising height to ensure passenger comfort. As for the sun, yes, our orbit around it is elliptical. The Earth is actually closest to the sun perihelion around January, which for many is a frigid time of year. In essence, we're living in a dynamic system where air density plays a crucial role in temperature regulation far beyond mere distance from the fiery ball in the sky. This is why we can have snow-capped peaks year-round even as the valleys below enjoy a much warmer climate. Because the atmosphere is thinner, less stuff to be warm. They are only slightly closer to the sun. Earth is about 91 million miles from the sun. A few thousand feet doesn't make a difference. Air rises and expands, causing it to get cooler. Generally, the atmosphere cooks at about 3 per 1,000 foot ruse in elevation. True fact rate. In the northern hemisphere, the Earth is closer to the sun in winter than in summer. Thanks for asking, OP. These are the kinds of questions that get the fun science why answers. Do the math. Let's say the mountain is 1 mile high at the equator. The sun is 93 million miles away. So the top is 193 closer at high noon. Atmosphere is far more relevant, as everyone notes here. Given how far the Earth is from the sun, comparing the top of the mountain to the bottom would be like comparing the block beside your house and the block on the opposite side of the world. Wait till you find out how cold space is. The sun is 150 million kilometers away. The highest mountain is 8 kilometers. Icarus was wrong. Space is closer to the sun and it's freezing. Because that's not how Earth's temperatures work. The Earth is not closer to the sun in summertime and further from the sun in winter. You get summer and winter based on how the Earth is tilted in relation to the sun. Mountains are cold because the air gets thinner and more dry the higher you go, which reduces its insulative properties. Icarus? Is that you? The sun heats the air, which you feel as temperature. The air is less dense the higher the elevation, so you feel less warm. Distance from the sun is irrelevant. Just think the sun is 1,206 km from the Earth. Statistically, 3 km are insignificant on that distance. What makes a difference is air under the atmosphere. Think of it as blankets. When you are at sea level, there are lots of air blankets covering you, so it is very warm. There are 760 mmHg of pressure on you, 760 mm of mercury. When you go up, the amount of blankets start decreasing. Where I was born, at 2,600 m over sea level, the atmosphere only has 560 mmHg. That means there are 200 less than at sea level. Almost 1/3 less. If you have a third less of blankets, you'll feel colder, and the higher you go the lower the temperature is because you were less covered. That's kind of a dull explanation, but I hope it's more clear. Cheers! These questions were all discussed in the middle school years of mandatory public school education, where I live. Did you skip a lot of earth science classes? Less of an atmosphere blanket to hold the warm stuff in. Heat doesn't transfer well when there is gas matter to transfer it. When they talk about thin air at higher elevations, they are not talking about just oxygen, but everything, so there's enough matter for it to be cold, but there's a thinner blanket over it, so it stays cold. Bro, did Icarus write this? Space is so big that the difference between sea level and a mountain in regards to the sun is completely insignificant. However, the air at a lower pressure, which means the thermal energy it contains, is dispersed over a larger volume than at sea level and thus is a lower temperature.